I never thought I'd be one of those people with a story like this. You know the kind, those messy, surreal Reddit threads that pull you in like a car wreck you can't stop watching. But here I am, and if you'd told me 6 months ago that my wife, Natalie, would end up sleeping with our mechanic while I was at work, I would have laughed in your face. Now I just sit with it. We were married 7 years, Natalie and I. It wasn't perfect, but whose marriage is? We had the basics down. Shared bills, inside jokes, a golden retriever named Rudy who slept at our feet, and a quiet, suburban life built on Target runs and binge-watching crime dramas. We never fought much, which I used to think meant we were solid. Turns out, silence can be just as damning as shouting. It started with the car. My 14 Ford Explorer had been making this faint knocking noise for weeks. I ignored it at first, typical guy stuff, but eventually, it got worse. Natalie was the one who finally convinced me to take it in. "It's probably nothing," she said, sliding her arms around my waist as I drank my morning coffee. "But better safe than stranded, right?" That's how I met Jesse, the mechanic. Well, not met. I'd seen him around town before. He ran a local garage just off Route 9. Mid-30s, tall, a bit of stubble, hands always stained with grease like a badge of honor. He had one of those confident, casual ways of talking that made you feel like whatever was broken could be fixed. I'd be lying if I said I ever thought twice about the guy. He called me 2 days after I dropped off the car. "Hey man," he said. "Gonna need a bit more time. Parts are on back order, but I'll keep you updated." "Cool. No rush," I told him. I had a company car anyway, and between work and weekend errands, I barely missed it. Natalie offered to pick up the keys for me once it was ready. "You're slammed at work. I don't mind swinging by," she said. "Besides, it's right next to that little thrift shop I love." I didn't think twice. Why would I? But then she started bringing him up. "Jesse says you should get your tires rotated more often," she said one evening. "Apparently you're killing your tread." "Oh yeah," I replied, half listening as I scrolled through emails. "Maybe I'll start inviting Jesse to Thanksgiving, since he knows so much about my car." She laughed. Not nervously. Not guiltily. Just easily. Like everything was perfectly normal. The second time was a week later. "Jesse said the Explorer's in better shape than he expected. He's impressed you've kept it running this long." I raised an eyebrow. "You two talk a lot?" She shrugged, pouring herself a glass of wine. "Just making conversation while he worked. He's funny." Has a kid around our nephew's age. That's when I felt the first ripple of something. Not quite suspicion, just discomfort. A man I'd barely exchanged words with now knew about my tire habits, our Thanksgiving plans, and my nephew's age. But I let it go. Because Natalie and I trusted each other. Because that's what marriage is supposed to be. The real shift came on a Saturday morning. I was mowing the lawn, earbuds in, when I spotted Natalie walking up the street. She was wearing a jean jacket, hair pulled into a ponytail, holding an iced coffee in one hand and her phone in the other. She didn't notice me until she was almost past the driveway. "Where'd you go?" I asked, killing the mower. "Oh," she said, like she hadn't expected me to ask. "Just out for a walk. Needed to clear my head." "In jeans?" She laughed, again, that easy kind of laugh. "Okay, fine. I dropped by the garage. Jesse said I could come by if I had more questions about the car." Just wanted to understand everything, you know? Seems like a lot of back and forth for a standard tune-up. She smiled, sipped her coffee. Maybe I just like being informed. And that was the first time it really felt wrong. Later that night, I brought it up again. "So, you've been going to see Jesse a lot, huh?" She shrugged. Not a lot. Once or twice. I mean, it's fine. You talk about him a lot. She looked at me for a long second. Are you accusing me of something? No, I said too quickly. No, of course not. And that was that. Conversation over. But my mind had already started the slow churn of doubt. A week later, I checked her phone. I hated myself for doing it. I'd never even considered it before. But something about the way she'd been carrying herself lately, the new underwear I hadn't seen before, the way she took longer getting ready, the faint scent of cologne on her when she came home late, none of it added up. My hand shook as I scrolled through her messages. There weren't many with him. Just a few. But the ones that were there? Thanks again for earlier. I needed that. You always know how to take care of things. Next time, maybe we don't rush. That was the one that hit hardest. I sat there on the edge of the bed, phone in my lap, the walls closing in like a vice. She was asleep in the other room. I stared at the dark screen and tried to imagine what take care of things even meant. I didn't ask her about it. Not then. I needed more. I needed the truth, not a deflection. So I called in a favor. The thing about favors is, you don't ask for them unless you're ready to hear the answer. And even then, you still hope you're wrong. I called Mason, an old friend from college, who now worked as a private investigator. We hadn't talked in a few years, but when he picked up, it was like no time had passed. I need you to look into something for me, I said, my voice low, even though I was alone in the garage. Someone cheating? Yeah, I think so. He didn't need much more than that. I gave him Natalie's plate number, a picture of Jesse, and the address of the garage. I need to know, Maze. Not guesses. I need hard truth. I got you, he said. Give me a few days. A few days turned into a week. During that time, I played the part of the clueless husband. I kissed Natalie goodnight, made her coffee in the morning, asked about her day like I hadn't read those messages 100 times in my head. She was different, though, lighter somehow. Like something inside her had been set free. I tried to mimic that same ease, but my body was tight, coiled, pretending to belong in a world that no longer made sense. The report came in on a Thursday afternoon. I was still in the office when Mason texted. You sure you want to see this? Yeah. Send it. The email came through a few minutes later. Pictures, timestamps, logs, descriptions. The first photo nearly knocked the wind out of me. Natalie, wearing that oversized sweater I'd always loved, stepping out of Jess's garage office, hair slightly tousled, eyes scanning the street like she knew it was wrong. Another photo, 3 days later, showed her parked behind the garage in a spot clearly not meant for customers. Jesse was there, leaning into her car window, his hand on the door, then on her neck, then gone, like nothing had happened. But the last set? That one hit hardest. Natalie and Jesse, inside the garage after hours. The lights were low. She was sitting on the edge of a workbench, legs wrapped around his waist, her head tilted back in laughter. He leaned into her like he belonged there. Like I didn't exist. Like the life we'd built was just background noise. I stared at the images until they blurred. Then I stared longer. That night, I didn't confront her. I couldn't. Instead, I watched her as she got ready for bed, humming some song under her breath. I wondered if she was humming it for him. Long day? She asked, slipping into bed beside me. Yeah, I replied, staring at the ceiling. Just work stuff. She rolled over and kissed my cheek. I'm glad you're home. I didn't sleep. The confrontation happened 2 nights later. I wasn't planning on it. Those things never happen the way you plan, but it bubbled up out of nowhere, like a volcano that had finally had enough. We were in the kitchen. I was chopping vegetables for dinner. She was scrolling through her phone, half smiling at something on her screen. "Did you see Jessie today?" I asked casually. She looked up. "What?" "Oh, no. Not for a while, actually." "Really? That's strange." She blinked, sensing something in my tone. "Why?" I set the knife down. "Because I've got pictures of you too. At his shop. After hours. Sitting on his workbench like it's your second home." The silence that followed was deafening. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You hired someone." "I needed the truth," I said, my voice calm but shaking. "And now I have it." Her eyes welled up instantly. "It wasn't serious. It was just something stupid. I didn't mean for it to happen." "You didn't mean to?" "Natalie, you went back." Again and again. "I know," she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I know. I messed up." "Why him?" She leaned against the counter like her knees might give out. "I don't know. It wasn't about him, not really. It was how he made me feel. Seen. Like I mattered." I stared at her, stunned. "And I didn't make you feel that way?" "You did," she said. "You always did. But after a while, it was like we just became roommates. You were always tired, always distracted. So you went looking for someone else to remind you were alive?" She nodded. I picked up my keys, unable to breathe in that room any longer. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Out," I said. "Somewhere that doesn't smell like betrayal." I spent the next 2 nights at my brother's place. Told him the basics, but not everything. He offered whiskey and silence, both of which I accepted. Natalie texted. A lot. First, she apologized. Then she tried to explain. Then she got defensive. Then, finally, she asked if we could talk. We met at the park. Neutral ground. "I ended it," she said, sitting beside me on the bench where we used to eat ice cream in the summers. "The second you asked about Jessie, I knew. I ended it that night." I didn't say anything. "I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you." "You already did," I replied quietly. She flinched. "Is there anything I can do?" I looked at her, really looked. She was still the woman I married. The one who danced in the kitchen and cried during Pixar movies and smelled like lavender in the mornings. But she was also the woman who broke us open and didn't stop until we bled. "I don't know," I said. "I really don't." We sat there in silence for a while, the kind that says more than words ever could. Weeks passed. That's the strange part. Life didn't explode the way you imagine it might. There was no shouting in the streets, no bags thrown out on the lawn. Just time, moving forward. Natalie stayed in the house. I stayed at a friend's guest room for the first week, then moved into a short-term rental on the other side of town. Rudy, our dog, went with her. I told myself it was better for him. His bed was there, his toys, his routine. But truthfully, I couldn't stomach the idea of walking him around the block with neighbors asking where Natalie was. I couldn't lie. Not anymore. We talked a few times. Cordial. Quiet. Like two people trying not to bleed on each other in the aftermath of a wreck. She sent me emails. Long ones. Reminiscing about the beginning. Reminding me of inside jokes. She even attached old photos, ones I hadn't seen in years. Our honeymoon. That road trip to Tennessee. The selfie we took in front of the broken-down gas station in Wyoming when our tire blew, and she laughed so hard she cried. Back then, I would have taken a bullet for her. And now? Now I didn't know what I'd do if I saw her smile like that again, if it would hurt or heal or both. I went back to the garage. Not for Natalie. For the Explorer. The same mechanic sign hung above the bay. I pulled in, and Jesse looked up from under the hood of a Dodge. When he saw me, his expression changed. He knew. I could see it in the way he wiped his hands too slowly and walked over with that careful, measured step. "Didn't expect to see you," he said. "I want the keys back." He nodded. No resistance. No excuses. Just reached into a drawer, grabbed the keys, and handed them over. I didn't thank him. Before I turned to leave, he said, "Look, I didn't know what she meant to you." "Not really. It wasn't supposed to happen like that." I paused. "You knew she was married." "I did," he admitted. "And I still did what I did. I've got no defense for it." There was a brief silence between us, just enough space for either of us to say something meaningful. But there was nothing left to say. No apology could erase what I'd seen on that workbench. "You fix engines," I said. "Not people. Stick to what you're good at." Then I left. Natalie asked me to come home. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. Just asked, "Let's go to counseling. Please. Just once. If it doesn't help, I won't ask again." So I went. We sat in a beige room with a softly spoken woman named Paula. She had those therapeutic eyes that look at you like you're some ancient riddle waiting to be solved. Natalie spoke first. About shame. About the loneliness she hadn't voiced. About how she felt invisible for so long she forgot how to ask for attention in a healthy way. Then it was my turn. "I loved you," I said. "With my whole being. I didn't know it wasn't enough." Natalie wept. Not the pretty kind. The ugly, raw kind. And I sat there, completely still, because part of me wanted to reach out, and another part wanted to bolt out the door and never come back. After the session, she held my hand in the parking lot. I let her. "I want to fix this," she said. I looked at her. "You can't just patch this like a leaky pipe. It doesn't work that way. But it can be repaired, right? Not perfectly. But maybe better?" I didn't answer, because the truth was, I didn't know yet. 2 months later, I filed for legal separation. I didn't want to rush the divorce, not out of hope, but out of fatigue. It felt like I had sprinted through emotional mud for weeks, and I just didn't have the strength for one more battle. She didn't fight it. We sold the house. She moved into a condo not far from her sister's place. I took an apartment closer to work. Rudy stayed with her. That part stung more than I'd expected. And then, one day, a letter arrived. Not an email. Not a text. A real letter, handwritten in blue ink on thick paper that smelled faintly like her lavender perfume. She didn't ask for anything. Instead, she wrote about regret. About how she'd been replaying our last few years over and over, trying to spot where the crack began. She didn't blame me. She didn't excuse herself. She just confessed. At the end, she wrote, "If there's even a sliver of you that still remembers how we laughed at that gas station in Wyoming, then know this: I carry that version of us with me every single day. You deserve better. But you gave me your best. And I will never stop being grateful for the years you gave me." I cried when I read it, not because I wanted her back, but because I finally understood what grief really is, missing something that's still alive, still walking around, still breathing, but no longer yours. Months turned into a year. I started dating again, cautiously. Nothing serious. But I smile more now. I sleep through the night. I see my parents more often. I call my brother just to say hey. I even joined a community running group on weekends, something I used to laugh at. I've grown. I don't know if Natalie has. I hope so. I hope Jessie fades from her life like a bad idea you barely remember. I don't hate her anymore. I don't think I ever truly did. Hurt and hate aren't the same thing. I learned that the hard way. This isn't a story of revenge. It's not even really a story of forgiveness. It's just what happened when love broke down like an engine that no longer turned over, and the hard, human truth that some things can't be fixed, no matter how many times you check under the hood.